Understand Kargil, you have to understand the line of control. Since 1972, a jagged 740-kilometer line has separated Indian and Pakistani-held Kashmir. Along the Kargil sector, that line runs through some of the most hostile terrain on the planet, the western edge of the Himalayas, where winter temperatures collapse to -40 degrees Celsius, and where the ridgelines rise above 5,000 meters. For decades, both armies observed an unwritten rule. Every winter, forward posts on the highest ridges were vacated. The peaks were simply unlivable. Every spring, both sides walked back up and resumed their positions. In the winter of 1998 to 1999, Pakistan broke that rule. The plan was conceived by 4 men. General Pervez Musharraf, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Mahmud Ahmed, Commander of Pakistan's 10 Corps, Major General Javed Hassan, Commander of the Force Command Northern Areas, and Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aziz Khan. They called it Operation Badr. The concept was audacious. Pakistani troops would cross the line of control, climb the vacated peaks, and dig in. When the snow melted, Indian patrols would find their old posts occupied by an enemy holding the high ground, controlling National Highway 1A, the lifeline to Ladakh and the Siachen Glacier. In one stroke, Pakistan could sever India's link to Siachen, internationalize the Kashmir dispute, and force negotiation on Pakistani terms. The men who would carry the plan out were the Northern Light Infantry, the NLI. Recruited from Gilgit, Baltistan, Hunza, and Chitral, they were the finest high-altitude troops Pakistan had. Battalions of the 4, 5, 6, and 12 NLI moved into positions across the Mushko Valley, Draz, Kaksar, Batalik, and Turdak subsectors, occupying over 130 positions across a 160-kilometer frontage. By late April 1999, they held peaks that dominated the highway, and nobody in India knew. But here is where the war was lost before the first shot was fired. If this is landing, save this video. You will want to come back to this one. Because everything that follows hinges on a single decision, and it is the decision the Pakistani military still refuses to fully discuss. Musharraf and his 3 co-planners made a choice that seemed brilliant on paper. They would not admit the NLI was involved. Officially, publicly, and internationally, the men on those peaks would be identified as Kashmiri Mujahideen, freedom fighters, non-state actors, insurgents. Pakistan's army would deny any presence across the line of control. If the operation succeeded, Islamabad would claim a spontaneous uprising. If it faltered, Pakistan would deny knowing the fighters at all. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was, according to his own later statements and multiple Pakistani accounts, not informed of the operational scope. Foreign Minister Sardej Aziz was not briefed. The Navy Chief, Admiral Fassi Bakari, and the Air Chief, Air Marshal Pervez Mehdi Qureshi, were kept in the dark for weeks. Musharraf briefed the Prime Minister only in general terms in mid-May, after the intrusion was already discovered. Sharif would later say he was told the operation was too far advanced to be recalled. The deception was the point, and the deception was the flaw. By dressing regular soldiers as insurgents, Pakistan surrendered 3 critical military assets before the fighting began. First, air power. Once Pakistan had denied its troops were on those peaks, the Pakistan Air Force could not fly ground attack missions to support them. Doing so would confirm the invasion. The NLI would fight without close air support. Second, artillery escalation. Pakistan could shell across the line of control, and did, but could not conduct a full corps-level artillery duel without exposing the fiction. Indian guns would eventually fire over 250,000 shells at Kargil, the heaviest artillery bombardment since the Second World War. Third, and most cruelly, recognition of the dead. When NLI soldiers were killed, Pakistan could not claim their bodies. Retrieving them would prove Pakistani military involvement. Hundreds of Pakistan's finest mountain troops would eventually be buried by Indian soldiers with full military honors, still in their NLI uniforms, because their own country would not accept them home. Stay with me. We are about to get to the moment that shocked even the Pakistani general staff, because the plan required one more assumption to hold. That India, once it discovered the intrusion, would negotiate rather than fight. That assumption died on the 3rd of May, 1999. His name was Tashi Namgil. He was a shepherd from the village of Garkin in Batalik. On May 3rd, 1999, he was looking for a lost yak when he spotted men in black clothing digging bunkers on a ridge that was supposed to be empty. He walked to the nearest Indian Army post and reported what he had seen. That report reached Brigadier Surinder Singh's 121 Infantry Brigade headquarters within hours. The Indians thought it was a small infiltration. A patrol from the 3 Punjab was sent to investigate on May 5th. 5 soldiers led by Captain Saurabh Kalia went up. None came back alive. Their bodies, returned by Pakistan weeks later, showed signs of torture. It was the moment the scale of the intrusion began to reveal itself. On May 26th, India launched Operation Vijay. General Ved Prakash Malik, Chief of Army Staff, mobilized 8th Mountain Division under Major General Mohinder Puri and eventually committed over 200,000 troops to the sector. The same day, the Indian Air Force launched Operation Safe Sagar, the first Indian air combat operation since 1971. MiG-21s, MiG-27s, MiG-29s, and Mirage 2000s flew missions at altitudes their airframes were never designed for. On May 27th, a MiG-27 flown by Flight Lieutenant Kambampati Nachakta suffered an engine flameout. He ejected over Pakistani territory and was captured. The MiG-21 sent to search for him, flown by squadron leader Ajay Ahuja, was shot down by a Pakistani Anza shoulder-fired missile. Ahuja survived the ejection. He was shot on the ground. The Indian assault was uphill in the most literal sense in military history. Pakistani NLI positions sat on ridges above 5,000 meters, with clear fields of fire down slopes of 45 to 70 degrees. Indian infantry had to climb, in some cases for 6 to 8 hours, under direct machine gun and mortar fire before they could even engage. The tactical textbook said such assaults were suicidal. They were made anyway. The turning point came at Taloling. From June 13th to 17th, 2 Rajputana rifles, supported by 18 grenadiers, took Taloling Peak in a battle so costly that entire companies were wiped out. Lieutenant Colonel Ravindranath's battalion suffered over 24 killed. But Taloling dominated the Dras sector, and once it fell, the Indian artillery, 155mm Bofors howitzers firing in direct fire roll over open sights, an unprecedented tactic, began shredding NLI positions one ridge at a time. Then came Tiger Hill, point 5062. On the night of July 3rd to 4th, 18 grenadiers assaulted the peak. Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav, climbing a near-vertical cliff face with a rope, was shot 15 times. He kept climbing. He would receive the Param Vir Chakra, India's highest military honor. The same night, 8 Sikh and 13 JAK rifles closed in from other faces. Captain Vikram Batra of 13 JAK rifles, who had already captured point 5140 with the radio call sign, "Ye Dil Manj More," this heart wants more, was killed on July 7th trying to take point 4875. He was 24 years old. But every peak Pakistan lost proved something worse than defeat. When the bodies of NLI soldiers were recovered, with identity cards, unit patches, pay books, Pakistan's denial collapsed. And the world was watching. On July 4th, 1999, American Independence Day, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif flew unannounced to Washington and requested an emergency meeting with President Bill Clinton. He arrived at Blair House, across from the White House, carrying the burden of a war his own army had launched without his full knowledge. The meeting that followed, later documented by Bruce Riedel of the U.S. National Security Council in a memorandum titled American Diplomacy, and the 1999 Kargil Summit at Blair House, was blunt. Clinton told Sharif that American intelligence indicated Pakistan was preparing its nuclear arsenal for possible use. He warned that unless Pakistani forces withdrew across the line of control immediately and unconditionally, the United States would publicly blame Pakistan for initiating the crisis. There would be no negotiation on Kashmir. There would be no third-party mediation. There would only be withdrawal. Sharif agreed. The joint statement issued that day committed Pakistan to restoring the line of control. In military terms, it was a surrender, with the surrendering side never having admitted it was fighting. NLI battalions on the ridges received orders through their own chain of command to disengage. Some units, particularly in the Mushko Valley and the Batalik sector, had already been overrun. Others withdrew under fire. Hundreds of dead and wounded were left behind. Pakistan's official casualty count would eventually settle at 453 killed. Indian estimates ran between 700 and 1,200. Musharraf himself, in his 2006 memoir, In the Line of Fire, would concede roughly 357. The true number is still disputed. India lost 527 soldiers killed and 1,363 wounded. 4 Param Vir Chakras were awarded to Captain Vikram Batra. Captain Manoj Kumar Pandey of 111 Gorkha Rifles killed assaulting Kalubar, Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav, and Rifleman Sanjay Kumar of 13 JAK Rifles. 2 of the 4 were posthumous. The war ended on July 26, 1999. India declared Operation Vijay complete. Every peak was retaken, and within 3 months, the officer who had planned the operation seized power in Islamabad. On October 12, 1999, General Pervez Musharraf overthrew the government of Nawaz Sharif in a bloodless coup. The prime minister who had gone to Washington to end the war he had not known about was arrested at his own airport. He would spend 7 years in exile. The deeper legacy of Kargil is not the peaks. It is the doctrine. Kargil was the first war fought between two nuclear-armed states. Both sides had tested weapons only 12 months earlier in May 1998. The world learned, in real time, what limited conventional war under a nuclear shadow actually looks like. India would rewrite its cold start doctrine in the years after. Pakistan would double down on the strategy of using deniable proxies, a strategy that culminated in the Mumbai attacks of 2008 and continues to shape South Asian conflict today. Every NLI grave on the Indian side of the line of control is a monument to the same decision. The decision to send regular soldiers to war disguised as insurgents. The decision that meant they could win the ridges but could never be brought home. CTA 12-00-13-00. If you made it this far, you already know why Kargil matters, not just as a battle, but as the moment modern deniable warfare was born on a nuclear frontier. This channel goes deep on the decisions that decide wars, the ones the history books skim over. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. A new full battle documentary drops every Friday. Drop in the comments, do you think Kargil was a Pakistani tactical victory that became a strategic defeat, or a strategic gamble that was always doomed? I read every reply. Outro 13-00-15-00. There is a lesson in Kargil, and it is older than Kargil. Sun Tzu wrote that no war is won by the army that fights without the state behind it. Musharraf and his 3 co-planners tried to fight a war without their government, without their air force, without their navy, and without the political cover to claim their own soldiers when they died. They chose deniability over legitimacy. They chose surprise over sustainability. And when the world's most powerful mediator picked up the phone, they had no ground left to stand on because they had spent 2 months denying they were on that ground in the first place. The men of the Northern Light Infantry did not lose Kargil. They were sent to fight a war their own chain of command was not willing to publicly own. That is what doomed them, not the Indian artillery, not the Bofors guns firing over open sights, not the assault up 70-degree slopes. It was the lie that put them on those peaks, and the lie that could not bring them down. If this one hit, my full breakdown of the 1971 Indo-Pakistani War, the 14-day campaign that split Pakistan in half and produced the largest military surrender since World War II, will change how you see South Asia entirely. That video is next. I will see you there. In May 1999, over 5,000 elite Pakistani soldiers from the Northern Light Infantry crossed the line of control and occupied the highest battlefield in modern military history, the ridges above Kargil in Indian-administered Kashmir. The operation, codenamed Operation Badr, was planned in secret by 4 Pakistani generals led by Chief of Army Staff Pervez Musharraf. The Prime Minister was not fully briefed. The Air Force and Navy chiefs were not informed. And the soldiers on the peaks were disguised as Kashmiri Mujahideen, a deception that would ultimately doom them. This documentary breaks down the strategic decision that guaranteed Pakistan's defeat before the first shot was fired. India's Operation Vijay counteroffensive under General V.P. Malik, the assault on Taloling and Tiger Hill, and the Washington Summit of July 4, 1999, that ended the war. Featuring the actions of Captain Vikram Batra, Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav, and Captain Manoj Kumar Pandey. 00-00, the war Pakistan was not allowed to fight. The line of control and the frozen frontier 03. 00, the decision that doomed the invasion 06. 00, the shepherd who exposed the intrusion 09. 00, the Washington ultimatum 12. 00, subscribe for weekly battle documentaries 13. 00, the legacy of Kargil.